Will by Will Smith. He did it, guys. Will Smith did it. He finally put out a memoir. Will Smith was always one of those guys who, to me, felt like he was really, from afar obviously, like a good friend. Reliable, caring, not scared to talk about difficult subjects, impossible to hate. Like most of my memoir reviews, I don't really know his material that well. I've seen a few movies here and there. I always liked Fresh Prince, but a lot. It's an amazing show, but I never watched that much of it. I'm not that familiar with his work, so it's always like a pleasure and a fun challenge to try to add a sense of perspective as someone who isn't well versed enough with Will Smith's work to be like, Will Smith he's like my dad. Like, he gave birth to me. He is the pepper snake to my Siberian alpaca, the PB to my JJ, the man bun to my weird beard. He taught me how to love, how to sleep, how to drive, and I know all the words about his songs because I'm convinced that deep down they're all about me. That's not me, okay? I hope to answer a few questions about this one. Is it any good? What can we learn from this wise, fine wine-aged comedian? What has he learned on his road to riches about values and meaning in life? And also, what is going on between him and his wife? Because if you look him up, you're probably gonna find a lot of what may be preposterous clickbait speculation about their relationship. In reality, it's probably not what it seems. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam, and I want to make self-growth normal, because people shouldn't have to look this information up. It should just be mainstream knowledge. If you agree, then please make sure to smash that like button. There's this amazing story in the beginning of the book where, of every story he could have started the book with, this was the best one. It was about a wall his dad made him and his brother Harry build when they were younger. I think they were like 10, and it took them over a year to build. I'll talk a little bit more about that story in another video I'll be putting out on this book regarding takeaways that I got from it. The story reminded me of something I saw him do a video of on Facebook or something a couple of years ago, where he was explaining that if you and Will Smith, if you guys are both running next to each other on treadmills, seeing who can run on the treadmill for the longest, he is gonna be the one who is willing to die before he stops. The beginning of the book was serious, but it was captivating, and it was entertaining. Kind of inspiring, actually. He grew up in a middle-class black neighborhood, and when he started making music, a lot of rappers thought that it was like, you know, bubblegum, fluffy, soft rap. And he said that what aggravated him so much about what they said about him is that they were pointing out things about his upbringing that he hated. His parents were so different from each other. His dad was more of the extrovert. And I can't help wondering how that affected the way that Will Smith began to later treat relationships in life, and how the way he was raised affected his parenting style. His parents sounded like such characters, mercurial, in charge, educated, but flawed, for sure. His dad once hit his mom, and she fell on the ground, and she got back up, and she walked right up to him and said, "You can hit me all you want, but you're never gonna hurt me." And of course, there was a racial dynamic he discussed. As long as he was the funny kid, he wasn't only a black kid, but he never really felt black enough, in his words, because of, for example, the dialect that his mom raised him on. An obsession of his over that time became the perfect joke, because he began to associate humor with safety in his childhood. It's that joke that will disarm anyone who's out to hurt him verbally or physically or in any manner. And high school sounded like it was a trip. He had a total fascination with hip hop. I wanted to comment on this because I don't say in all my reviews, but I rapped and sang and produced my own music entirely for 3 years. But I like how he got into rapping and then he got into acting. When he was rapping in school, he used comedy to win battle after battle after battle in the schoolyard. And somehow some people they might have used tight or buttery smooth flows, or they relied on their deliveries, but he relied on comedy. Also, something else is that his style is so heavily influenced by a guy named Grandmaster Caz. And this makes a lot of sense, because that guy was making music in like the early 80s. And who on earth made rap music in the early 80s? Have you ever actually heard Will Smith's music? I'm just asking because I'm under the impression that a lot of people haven't. I only remember 2 or 3 of his songs, Switch, Nice Guy, and the Men in Black theme, but they have the most aggressively old school style to them. And that is where it came from. Who knew? Smith even said that he and his partner, DJ Jazzy Jeff, got a ring to it, Jazzy Jeff. DJ Jazzy Jeff. It's a lot of J's. What they were doing back then, he listens to now and he just like cringes because of how much rap has changed over the years and the decades, really. It just all sounds so simplistic now. But back then, It was revolutionary. Now, in the last several months, I have reviewed a bunch of books wherein the audio versions had these like sound samples in the backgrounds, and I commented that I felt it added so much like dimension to the books and made them feel more like movies. Like you don't have to try to digest them. You don't have to try as hard to imagine what the explosion or the song or the shouting reverend in the field, what they all sounded like. Why would a reverend be shouting in the middle of a field? And by the way, anyone wondering about the narration, bro, this is Will Smith's memoir. Please expect nothing less than pure animation. His voice at some points can bring striking life to his words. Something else I noticed in Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey pauses when something in his story, it goes his way. And then he says, green light, because that's the motif of the book. That's what it is. It's something that tells you that you're heading in the right direction. One in Will, maybe in the first half, it's not as prevalent, but it's there. When something went on that Will felt was kind of fishy, he paused and made this buzzing sound before continuing with the story, referring to it later on as his shock collar. I'm just gonna waive the spoilers on the relationship he had with this girl, Melanie. It's too much to unwrap in a review, not just detail-wise, but emotionally too. The longer he spoke about his time with music, the more I do admit I started to think to myself, okay, well now I want to hear about his acting. And then after his endeavors with the legendary Quincy Jones, boom, Fresh Prince. The landscape of Will Smith's imagination, it was like released by acting. It was so much more multi-dimensional than music. It just set him free. By the way he introduced this section of the book, going over the cast one by one, describing each of his relationships with them and what they meant to him, it was genius. There's a whole thing he had with another relationship. I'm not gonna spoil it, but in that part, he threw in this rant about devotion and vows, and why a lot of people in his experience, they just get divorced too soon. Smith said that they do it before they extract the lessons that will keep them from doing the exact same things in their next relationships. After several movies, Pursuit of Happiness, 6 Degrees of Separation, he asked at this Hollywood gathering 3 separate movie stars. It was Arnold, he said Sly, I'm guessing that's Sylvester Stallone, and Bruce Lee. He asked them what needs to happen for him to become the biggest movie star in the world. Arnold Schwarzenegger answered, saying something that definitely stood out. You are not a movie star if your movies are only successful in America. You are not a movie star until every person in every country on earth knows who you are. You have to travel the globe, shake every hand, kiss every baby, think of yourself as a politician running for biggest movie star in the world. He starts to think of himself after this as the product instead of the movie being the product. And notice that other cast members in movies would hate to do those things. Running around the world to 30 global territories, doing some fan events and going to the press. The best person at this in Hollywood for a very long time was Tom Cruise. So Will Smith was like, well, what do I have that he doesn't? Music. So he used that to his advantage. Independence Day grossed a total of $817 million, all on a $75 million budget. That's over 1,000% return. He went from poor to rich to broke with no acting experience to starring in the highest grossing film in the world, and he was only 27 years old. There were just so many unorthodox details that you'll find in Will, like when he was talking about the differences between being music famous, being TV famous, and then being movie famous. And also how he taught his son Trey to refer to Will Smith's second wife as a bonus mom instead of a stepmom. Unorthodox, and there was a point where he mentioned all the movies that he starred in and how much money they made domestically and globally. And then he said, what you just heard is probably the greatest individual hot streak in the history of Hollywood. This I don't care about. As a book reviewer, I'm just mentioning it because that isn't the only moment of the book that's like this. I'm sure negative comments and other reviews of this book are gonna mention this. If someone thinks here and there he can be a little bit arrogant, okay, I get it. I can understand where you're coming from. Now, maybe this is just me, but arrogance in a book is something that I always saw as, if it's not unbearable, it's not a problem at all. The strangest thing to me about the whole memoir is that Will Smith had this pattern with his movies of being like, no, I'm not doing this movie. And then someone convinces him to do it. And he's like, well, I guess it makes sense. And he's probably one of the hardest working actors ever. But the no that he gave everyone was never because he was like too busy It was always about image or marketing or his reputation or maybe someone else's reputation. Did you know that he starred in a Muhammad Ali biopic? Now, the whole thing with Will Smith and his wife Jada, it didn't come to light. I'm not sure Smith said a thing about it until later on in the book. Maybe I wasn't paying much attention if he did. But I did learn some cool things about her, like at some point she was extremely close with Tupac, and that she's also the singer of a new metal band called Wicked Wisdom. The section with Michaela Boeing, an alleged love coach, it's fascinating. It really is. And I say alleged because I didn't know there was such a thing as a love coach, did you? Everything after that, I'll leave to the book. But it's an incredible last few chapters. I think those last few chapters might be better than the rest of the book. But from his childhood made-up friend Magicker, to his cowboy boot phase, to Reverend West, to Grandmaster Kaz, to Monopoly on Christmas, to a daughter who was known for whipping her hair back and forth until one night when she suddenly decided to shave her head, to Uncle Fluffy the General, and the freestanding man and beyond, because there is a lot that I did not cover. And how long is this review? Like 14 minutes? This was a candid, vivid, beautiful, and at times touching memoir. It was detailed enough that you got a solid idea of what his life was, but not too detailed that you felt overwhelmed or like it was a little difficult to digest. And it was educational enough that every now and then he'll drop a nugget of wisdom that you can really only know for sure from experience, but not in the sense that it sounded preachy or motivational speakery. At the end, you just have to clap your hands and say, "Well done." Get it? Well done. Quotes. It's hard to be really funny if you're not really smart. It's better to die than to quit. You're not a rapper here. You're an actor, so act like it. I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. If she chose me over Tupac, there was no way I could be a coward. You fight how you train. There's only one fear worse than not attaining the object of your desire, and that's the fear of losing it. If you don't choose me to direct this film, please don't choose an American filmmaker, because Americans don't understand the beauty of the American dream. Feelings come and go and change like the weather. You can't plan anything around them. You could either worry about how people feel or win, but you had to pick one. Direction 1. I recommend this book for anyone who wants to know more about Will Smith. Simple as that. Direction 2. If you like this book, Green Lights. If you have not checked out Green Lights, please go check out Green Lights. If you have checked out all my other recent memoir reviews and all those memoirs and you haven't checked out Green Lights is the memoir I will recommend at least this year above probably any other. But the closest one to Green Lights, it's Will. It is. It's definitely Will. At least for actors. Will, the memoir by Will Smith. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video, if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.